Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sega Saturn Shiro, your number one resource for Saturn and Saturn related news from E3.
Wait, what? What? That's a change. Your only podcast that's your number one resource.
Listen, I couldn't fit it in there. I did the best I can, okay? I'm trying my best here, alright? This episode will be a mini update. As you've really noticed, we haven't done a podcast in a while just because we've been really busy. I know that we've all been chugging along, and it may seem we're kind of not posting as much. No, it's fine. We're just really busy. I've been trying to keep everyone in the loop with the news articles, the updates on Facebook and Twitter. Peter has as well with his cool new Guess That Saturn game, which I always lose because I'm bad at guessing games. I'm awful at them. But yeah, no, we've been keeping that getting the Anna streams. So we're gonna be getting some more podcasts, new topics, some interviews, and some really exciting upcoming stuff that I think you guys are gonna love, or maybe not. We can't. They all can't be winners, right, guys? With that onslaught of information, let's add to another onslaught with all the E3 news and goodies and things revolving around E3 that we've been hearing in the last couple months. We'd like to give our thoughts and considerations on some of these new technologies and new games and Saturn-related stuff that's coming out in the market. Let's start with the Panzer Dragoon remake.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Panzer Dragoon was announced actually quite a bit earlier, or it was leaked anyways. But lots of gameplay footage was shown off at E3. And it's, a lot of people are thinking that it's on Switch only, but that's not the case. It's announced on all platforms. It's being developed by Forever Entertainment, and they're a Polish-based software house. And right at the moment, they've got a release date for the first game for winter 2019. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to see some of the footage, but it looks pretty cool. It doesn't look like it's a straight up just a port, but almost like a reimagining of the original game, because some of the backgrounds seem to be enhanced. There just seems to be a lot more going on than just the sort of empty and desolate landscapes of the first game. But it looks really, really awesome. And so long as the gameplay's there, I think this is going to be, a really solid game. And Panzer 1 isn't going to be the only title that they're working on. They're also looking to bring over Panzer Zwei. Now, we've not got a release date for that. There's been no screenshots or gameplay video or anything else from the second game. We've only just got the first one so far. But so far, everything that we're seeing is pretty impressive. If they do a really good job with this one, there's no reason not to think that they're going to do a really awesome job with the second one as well. And the last thing I want to just quickly throw out there is there's no mention yet of a Panzer Dragoon Saga remake or reimagining. So for those of you that are thinking that, they're doing the first one, they're going to do the second one, that they might do Panzer Saga, that is not the case. They're also not working with the original source code. So they're building this from the ground up. They don't seem to think that it's going to be an issue so far. And, so far it looks good. Looks like they're making some pretty good progress. And I just want to get you guys' thoughts if you've seen the gameplay video and what you're thinking about this game.
Well, my exposure to this was limited to the Nintendo Direct, and I have to say that regardless of anything else, I want to start off with I am happy to see that any development in the Panzer Dragoon world is happening. Remake, reimagining, ports, whatever. I like seeing franchises that I've enjoyed and continue. That said, I did notice some of the feedback that others in the community have been stating, and not very much because I've kind of been offline for a while. There was a very divisive commentary about the art style and like how much more alive the world felt. Now, you were mentioning like the desolate feel of the originals didn't really seem to brought forth in what was shown of the remakes already, or of the remake for Panzer Dragoon. And I think that's one of the things that kind of strikes. Like I can't wait to see it, and I know that the gameplay is going to be there, but it's going to be like tossing on a can of paint onto something that should be familiar. And I'm hoping that's exactly what it is. Like that they don't stray too far or too wildly from the original's gameplay, and maybe enhance controls a little bit, but for the most part keep that pretty much solid from the original. The difference between the original and the remake as far as the environment and the art style, it's thought-provoking. I don't know how I feel about it yet, because I think that it's a classic, right? This is a classic series. This is a well-loved series, and I would like to see that maybe an emulation of the original, an homage to the original art style is available as a playable skin, kind of similar to how like the Street Fighter series in recent years, after HD Remix came out, had an option of using the original sprites versus using the HD sprites. I would like to see if there might be an option to play in more of the original, the desolation and the art style there, just enhanced for modern graphics.
Personally, I would really like to play that as well, but with that source code missing, I don't know how doable that can be. Because I know that at least with the Halo Anniversary Edition, they had that source code to work with, and that was sort of put on top of it. But I think in this case, it just might be remake only, which I guess has its benefits and drawbacks. But I kind of really like the art style, and especially since they're doing stuff like they're changing up some of the levels a bit, where it's not like one to one, like there's going to be small differences. I think it might be hard to do something like that, but I would really, really enjoy it if they did something of that nature. But I guess really we'll have to wait until December and see, or at least the winter and see. But my thoughts on the games, I'm really excited for it. I know, like Kay was saying, that there's been some mixed feelings on it, especially from people outside of it, where they're saying that the trailer itself kind of felt like it was underwhelming per se. I can't really comment on that, but in my opinion, I think it looked fine. I guess when I'm looking forward to a game series that hasn't had a game in what's almost 20 years, it's kind of like you just take what you can get as long as it looks decent enough and it plays well.
Did you count Crimson Dragon? Since it was essentially a spiritual successor to it.
Not really. Well, Orta, that's what I'm talking about because that came out in '03. So like about 16 years, I guess.
So, as far as the source code is concerned, I mean, I know that they're not going to be able to exactly recreate the targeting systems and gameplay of the first game. They're going to do, the homage, the remake for the gameplay. And I honestly, like, I'm okay with that. I just, hope that it sticks pretty close to it, not necessarily being exact. The concern that I'm thinking of having, and it's not even like with the level design, like they can change up levels, add new levels. That's fantastic. I don't think that the level design of the game makes much of a difference for the first two Dragoons, mostly because it's an on-rails shooter. So, like you could take away the backgrounds from that, and all you're really doing is changing where the camera is located in any particular location during the course of that level, and how that camera rotates. But with the art style, the interesting thing about it is that they could do an homage to the original art style as well, not necessarily make it like the original where it was that all those polygons that were so very sharp on the first game. More about that desolation and the color palette that's used. It just seemed like the bit that I saw made it look more like a little bit more populated version of the anime than the desolation and loneliness of the original game. Kind of feel like that was part of the narrative, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it felt like you were in this world. It was you and your dragon, and you guys were bonding against like this horde of enemies, and with a much more livelier and colorful environment that they were showing off. It almost takes a little bit away from that narrative, that implied narrative. Like it's one that your brain isn't told outright, like this is the world that you're in, but more that you get the feeling of as you play. Like, wow, like I really have no allies in this world. It's just me and this dragon. We're gonna make it, kind of a thing. Might be a little too cheesy.
No, that's fine. I kind of am seeing where you're going with it, and maybe that's like some level or some one-off. But I guess we'll just have to see when that drops this winter, then at least. But I'm hoping we will be able to have best of the both worlds, where we have both the desolation and the beauty of that landscape, and being able to explore this giant world and like have it like more fleshed out in a way.
I know that when this game was first in development, Yukio Futatsugi, he wanted to take advantage of the fact that the Saturn could do that infinite playing. And that was one thing that the PlayStation couldn't do. And so he really used that. Like he used it in the deserts, he used it in the forest levels, he used it in the water worlds. And so I think it was sort of by accident that we got that feeling of desolation, because of them using what they had in terms of programming tools. But it was such a good and happy accident. Like, it ended up lending so much atmosphere to the game. So I don't think the new one is necessarily going in that direction. And although it looks really good, I would definitely be missing that feeling of openness and loneliness, because I think it really just makes such an impact to this game.
You know what it kind of reminded me of as you were talking about it? Seeing the original Star Wars films versus seeing like the special editions where they added all the CG rebel ships.
Wow, that's such an awesome comparison, Kate, because that's exactly what this feels like. You're right.
Who shot first though in this version? Are they gonna switch it up where the enemies attack you and you have to attack them back, or are you just gonna attack them straight on and seem like a really dark guy and dark, cold-blooded killer?
It was Jabba the Hutt who, no, I don't know. I don't do Star Wars enough to be able to make a good Star Wars joke out of this, but
But isn't it like Han Solo that's riding the dragon in the remake? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Harrison Ford was riding the dragon. It's confirmed.
Okay, done. Perfect.
but yeah, it was that idea. And now, granted, like the special editions came out 20 years after the original, and for the most part, they had the source code, right? They had the original film, and were able to just add stuff onto it. But seeing that originally, like the Rebel Alliance was just like a small band of ships. They didn't have a lot to them, and it kind of struck me as weird that you know this small band of rebels was able to completely decimate the Empire. And so changes that the special edition made, like adding more ships, did make sense from a logical position, but it felt like it completely ripped away from the storyline.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that way too. I mean, the thing about Star Wars is that I liked it because it was the time, it was what they worked with, and it kind of seemed like there wasn't 5 million ships, there wasn't all these aliens all over. It was the small group. The Empire wiped out all these people. All this is what's left. There wasn't these CGI monsters driving all around and flying. It was like these guys. This is what's left.
Seeing development on Saturn IPs, especially ones that really didn't show up anywhere else, is a positive thing to me. To that end, I don't want to have any discouragement about it. And I'm going to keep an open mind when it comes down to it.
So Shenmue 3, wow, that was announced way back in, I think it was E3 2015. Was it 2015?
Yep, at the Sony press conference, they had the whole announcement thing come out. I think it was right before or after Final Fantasy VII as well.
Yeah, that's right. And then Yu Suzuki showed up and he kicked off the Kickstarter. Anyway, so here we are 4 years later, literally, and it looks like Shenmue is going to be releasing this year. If you'll remember, earlier this year they had announced an August 2019 release date, but now that's been pushed back until November. But at least we're very close. And I know there's, just like with Panzer, there's a lot of divided opinion here with how the characters look and how they move around and everything. I guess from my perspective, people have waited years and years to conclude the story of Shenmue, and it looks like in a few months that's going to actually happen. So I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have and whether people are going to nitpick that. And I guess we'll see. I'm just super excited that it's coming out at all. I mean, I just figured after number 2, that was it, game over, and we would just never see the end of the story. So I'm just happy that it's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's been talking Shenmue 3 for years. I mean, I can think back to the Dreamcast talk years where it's like, oh, Shenmue 3, Sega, when are you going to do it? Or, all this. And we're finally getting it after, like, what, 18 years later after the second one dropped when we're stuck in that cave. But yeah, I mean, we're here. It's coming out. It looks all right. I mean, as good as it can for a Kickstarter game. It definitely really has that vibe and feel of the first and second one. So, I mean, if you're looking forward to that, that's great. I wouldn't say it's particularly like Yakuza levels of amazing graphical wise or gameplay wise, but I think it's good enough to satisfy the fans that really want to play it and at least impress or entertain people that have never played Shenmue before. So I'm just super excited, and at this point, I think the Shenmue fans really have gotten everything they wanted. They got the 1 and 2 remaster, they got Shenmue 3. The last piece of the puzzle is the Virtual Fighter RPG Akira side story. And once we got that, I mean, there's literally nothing else besides the newer Shenmue games for the fans to get, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny, I was just looking through my old video files and I was watching the bit of Saturn Shenmue footage that leaked. I think it was the original Xbox generation. Anyways, it looked phenomenal for a Saturn game, but it did kind of make me wonder. I mean, it's pretty easy to make like phenomenal demos when you've got no AI going on, when there aren't, characters to keep track of. It's all sort of pre-programmed, right? And I kind of wonder how much of that was the case with that Saturn demo, because I mean, it looked the business. If Yu Suzuki and his crew managed to get it to that level of visual fidelity, I mean, that would have just been an unbelievable achievement. But anyways, I don't want to get too far off the beaten track here. But I mean, yeah, it kind of brought back those feelings when I was watching those videos just a little while ago. It was just it's one of those what could have been situations. But here we are. Shenmue 1 and 2 have been remastered, and Shenmue 3 is on its way. So what more could the fans ask for at this point? I mean, it's coming out, and that's just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me in like 12 or 13, oh, Shenmue's gonna get all these remasters in a new game, I would have told you, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen ever. That's never gonna happen. Sega doesn't care about it.
Yep, absolutely. You're right, that it was just a dead series. I know that for years, folks would ask Yu Suzuki, what about number three? When are you going to work on number three? And, he always did want to conclude the story, but there was, the cost issue, the fact that in the early 2000s, he left Sega. So, there was, would they let him work on it? So there were all these sort of question marks in the air. And so for it to be just months away from being a reality is pretty awesome. I think people are going to be super, super excited about this.
Yeah, and I think the coolest thing is they actually announced Limited Run Games was going to do a collector's edition for it. So for people that weren't able to get in on the Kickstarter and get that collector's edition, you can pick up that one from Limited Run Games whenever that really drops. But there's been no information on when that's going to be or when the pre-orders for that are going to go up. But that's going to include a replica mirror from the game, cool shadow box of Ryu and Londi fighting with the shadow box, and I guess a art book. But yeah, that's gonna be coming out. I'm kind of excited. I might pick it up. I don't know. I might be collector's editioned out, but we'll see. Did you have any thoughts on it, Kay?
Oh boy, this
Uh oh,
is
guys. Uh oh. Uh oh.
Here we go.
so I wanted in on this when it was going to be a Kickstarter. I wanted in on this pretty badly because of the Saturn history, having not ever owned it or even played it on the Dreamcast, and I wanted to have the opportunity of this legendary story and series to actually own and play and enjoy. And I signed up for the Kickstarter, and there was no Xbox One edition, and I couldn't do it. I hate exclusivity. I hate the idea that in the modern age where we can port the same game to multiple consoles, to PC, etc., where a choice is made to explicitly disallow that. The case behind this one is that Sony sponsored it. I was a big Sony fanboy for a long time during the original Xbox era. I hated Microsoft. I thought they were consumer unfriendly, and I hated the chokehold and that they did with smaller developers and the monopolistic practices that they had. But as time moved on, one of my favorite consoles besides the Saturn is the original Xbox. One of the consoles that I've had purchased the most games for was the Xbox 360. I almost feel like it's kind of like the spiritual successors to the Dreamcast and a lot of the gameplay that was on there. Really, what came down to is that Sony made a lot of bold announcements with the PS3, and it didn't hurt them as bad as like the pricings, particularly a $600 PS3 versus a $400 Saturn, but people still end up buying PS3. And so there's all of that. But the point is that when that Kickstarter became a Sony exclusive, or you play it on PC, I said no. I wasn't going to back it. I I cannot. Much as I might love, a particular developer, uh, or their games and what have you, the vision that they have, I hate the idea of exclusivity. And I've seen what basically had happened with Street Fighter V being a Sony exclusive. Being a big Street Fighter player, I own fight sticks, but my platform of choice during Street Fighter 4's generation, PS3, 360, was obviously the 360. I have both consoles, but I invested in my fight stick setup primarily for the 360. And so now I'm left holding the bag of all of these expensive peripherals that I bought that can't be utilized on the Xbox One because of Microsoft's choice. So Microsoft, in case anyone thinks I'm like a Microsoft fanboy right now. But then also, making Street Fighter 5 exclusive to PlayStation meant that if I was interested in playing, Street Fighter 5 anywhere, I was going to get yet another fight stick. And I was just done with that entire idea. So looking at Shenmue 3 and going, you're making it exclusive. I'm glad that they gave him the money. I'm glad he got to finish the story. I can't support it.
I gotcha, and that's definitely fair enough. I'm kind of the same way with some of those exclusive games. It's like, I don't really want to buy a new console for this or that. I'm a big PC gamer, so a lot of the stuff I play is always going to come to PC in one form or another, especially now. But back then it definitely was different. But now it's a little bit easier. But I can definitely see you're going from what's like, really? I mean, could easily ported it.
It gets worse. Apparently, recently they made a decision to change platforms from Steam to Epic if you're going to be a PC backer. And for some people, that's not going to make a difference. It's just, distribution channels. But for others, it's a big, no-no. And it actually, from my interpretation, it actually violates the Kickstarter, like, I guess, rules of engagement. When a company puts forth a Kickstarter, they agree to certain terms and certain goals that must be met as a baseline. And one of those baselines was providing a Steam version of the game. And now that it's not, people are asking for their refunds and they're not getting them. So it gets kind of more into like a political aspect of things. I'm facing the same thing with Bloodstained, which comes out in like a week.
I wasn't really feeling the Epic thing because they kind of put in the description that the things can change, like they kind of weased it out with it saying that the PC settings and terms can change over whatever the releases of it. So I didn't really see that big of a deal as they put that in there. But with your situation with Bloodstain, that kind of was a lot different, and I'm kind of with you on that one. But I don't think we really have a lot of time to go into that. But
no.
But I'll talk to you offline about it. But yeah, no, I definitely can see some of the Epic Store concerns. I'm for like maybe bringing up, that kind of sucks. But I've seen a lot of really negative reactions where, well, even I was attacked about it, where somebody called me a Fortnite fanboy or Fortnite other terms because I thought it wasn't really a big deal. I guess maybe I'm just a Fortnite fanboy, and I can't bring up that it might not have been a big deal, but whatever. We won't go into that too much. Did we have any sort of final thoughts on Shenmue 3?
I'm glad it's coming out. At the end of the day, that's the important thing.
All right, so why don't we move on to our next topic, which is the Phantasy Star Online 2 getting a English release date. And while you might be thinking, oh, didn't that come out in 2012? Well, it kind of did, but it was in Japan only. And the only way to play it before that was to go through a painstaking patch process where half the game would be in English, but the other half would be in Japanese. Everyone really was speaking Japanese. I think some of them required VPNs depending on where you lived, which is in layman's terms, just a way to connect to a server and spoofing that you're somewhere else. So say you're in the US and you use a VPN to say you're in Europe to get on a European server, but essentially it was really nasty, really gritty way to get on and play Phantasy Star Online 2 or PSO2, and it really was difficult to play. And setting up from what I understand, a account for it was also a really big hassle unless you were using a lot of Google Translate. Luckily, that's not an issue anymore. It was announced at the Xbox press conference that it was coming for the PC and Xbox One initially in the spring, and eventually going to make its way to PS4 and Switch at a later date. And the best thing about it's going to be a free-to-play game, and it will be completely in English, at least for the U.S. market. I talked about a little bit on the Titancast that there's no confirmation for Europe or any other Western areas for the most part, so I can't really see anyone having issue getting like a VPN or signing up in US store and using a European account. I don't think there's going to be a big hassle, but yeah, I'm just really happy it's really playable. I mean, I had good memories playing Fantasy Star Online, and I'm gonna be really happy getting some more. And all my coworkers are like with me with that, and even my roommate's gonna be playing with it.
So, I don't even know how to say this, but I have not played Fantasy Star Online or any Fantasy Star game for that matter, and I need to remedy that probably sooner rather than later. But yeah, I've never played Fantasy Star. That's I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth.
Hey, you got an opportunity coming up. It's coming out in spring, so I'll see you online, Peter.
I can
Okay,
also just send you the Fantasy Star collection on the Saturn.
Uh, Kay, you kind of turn into a Borg.
I turned into a Borg.
Yeah, you sound like you're gonna assimilate me.
you sound horrible.
Wow.
Can you please say we are the Borg? You will be assimilated, please.
We are the Borg.
Oh, come on! It fixed when I wanted you to. Come on.
That's
Well,
hilarious.
this is obviously staying in the cast, by the way. This is not being cut out, but
I was saying that we can send Peter a copy of Fantasy Star Collection on the Saturn.
That sounds great. I mean, and I know it's in Japanese only, but hey, guess who needs some more Japanese practice? So yeah, you bet. That sounds great.
Awesome.
all right, guys. Why don't we move on to the newly announced Grandia 1 and 2 remasters? I imagine you guys heard the news about that, right? Where they're dropping both Grandia 1 and 2 for both the Switch and PC.
Yeah, I'm totally excited about this. Of course, I'm a huge fan of Grandia 1 for the Saturn. I also played through Grandia 2 on the Dreamcast several times. I think the games are really fantastic, and they're both, I mean, they're both RPGs, obviously, but they've got it's almost like they have different themes. And anyways, I enjoyed both of them immensely, and the fact that they're coming for Switch and PC is awesome. I know that the developers, they just felt that the Switch was the best console for JRPGs, and that's why they chose to bring it over. And I know it was announced quite a bit earlier too, but it had sort of a end of 2018 release date, and obviously that was missed. So I was kind of worried there for a second. I thought, oh shoot, okay, is this one that's going to sort of disappear and we'll never hear of it again? So the fact that we got the confirmation that yep, it's still happening, it's still going on, that's pretty awesome.
I thought it was kind of weird when that was announced because it was the same day as like two other remakes, the Destroy All Humans remake and weirdly enough SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. So definitely interesting contrast there.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, and the other thing too, Pat, is I know the devs are using both the PlayStation and Saturn, like elements from source code from both of those games, at least for the first game's remake. So that's really fascinating. And I mean, the first game came out on Saturn first and then was ultimately ported to the PlayStation, and many people feel that it was stronger on Saturn. So we'll see exactly what is taken from each version and what they end up ultimately doing with it. But I mean, this is one that I'm definitely looking forward to. This is probably going to be a day one buy for me whenever that ends up dropping. And yeah, I'm just totally excited.
Same here, man. I really want to play it again, and maybe we'll even maybe do a test stream of it. Would you guys might be interested in that? Maybe
Oh yeah, that sounds great to me.
do like a day one little stream. We'll talk about it. We'll get something in the works for you guys, like a Shiro first look, Shiro perspective. Maybe we'll talk about that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Kay?
I don't really have any. I'm excited about the fact that the series is going to be playable, on a single system for anybody. And I think that's pretty cool. And I know that the series itself is, legendary. This is one that I missed all the way around, and the most excitement from a Grandia title that I've got these days is the fact that it's getting a fan translation on the Saturn.
Yeah, definitely. And while we're on topic, do we want to go into the updates on that while we're on the Grandia thing?
Well, so during our last cast, we had sort of talked about all these different upcoming translations, fan translations, and we of course touched upon Grandia, and then literally weeks after our podcast dropped, we had the first disc of the game, because it's a 2 disc game. It released with an English patch, and so folks have been able to start patching up their copies, and they've been able to play Grandia in English, and so it's phenomenal. So I mean, 1 disc out of 2, it sounds like we're halfway there. So hopefully, we're not going to wait too much longer for the second half, because that would be quite an accomplishment to have that fully translated in English on the Saturn.
Yeah, we're halfway there, but as long as we're not living on a prayer, I think we'll be good.
Oh man, I didn't smell that one coming.
Gah.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Pat. But two can play at this game, so the puns are gonna start happening now. I'm afraid you've opened floodgates.
So yeah, I'm really excited for the new fan translation, and like I'm not sure if I brought it up on the last podcast, but Sam and I actually we were in sort of talking back and forth when the first patch dropped for it, and we were like sharing information and talking a little bit, and yeah, we or Sam as in the SSG on YouTube, uh, I guess just to give reference, but yeah, we were talking a little bit, and we were going back and forth talking about the patch updates and how far we were and how we were trying to get it to launch up, and that was pretty fun. And we actually ended up doing a stream together for our, I think it was the second or third Anna stream, and we played through the game a little bit. We talked about some of the weird glitches we encountered with it, but it was pretty interesting. And that video is up on our YouTube page if you'd like to check it out. And that was really nice of him to feature us in his video on the fan translation of that. I just wanted to thank him for that. But yeah, I was really excited. I played through the up to the first dungeon and we beat that. And it was pretty fun. And I really look forward to playing that for the rest of the Anna stream. And once that's done, we sit down and play it because it was a really good first look and impression. And there were some issues here and there, but for the most part, it was very playable and I had a great time. And I absolutely can't wait to play the rest of it.
Yeah, you know what? When the rest of it drops and you're ready to do your next Anna stream, I'm thinking I'm gonna be jumping on as well. I'd love to be part of that.
Anyone the Shiro camp's invited, I really think that, experiencing it and talking back and forth is really important. So definitely, I'd love to have you on, Peter, you on, Kay, if you'd like to be on. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm super excited.
I'm included.
You're not included in the Snatcher one. You're banned from that, unfortunately.
I'm banned from Snatcher.
Yeah, you're not allowed to stream.
Is it?
No.
You know what's really funny is I reach over my desk right now and I'm holding my PC Engine Super CD-ROM 2 of Snatcher. It is on my desk. I'm just opening it up and shoving it in your face,
How does that smell?
like opening a pack of Magic cards for the first time.
Um, it'd be like if you had a sealed pack of Magic cards from the 1990s. On the subject of the Black Lotus card, why don't we
Oh.
no. Why don't we do we want to do a sort of a speed round of the Retrobit controllers and some of the Genesis Mini stuff?
Well, the only update I've really got is that Retrobit have just a few days ago, as of this recording, they've announced that they are working on the wireless ones and that they're going to be coming out soon. So I don't think we've got a date yet, and I'm not sure even, for which consoles they're talking about, but they're finally starting to appear. So to me, that's nothing but good news. And I did find online there was a picture of a mold of a Dreamcast controller that they've had, and they've actually, I noticed that it had 6 face buttons. It wasn't just the 4 from the original design. So that sounds exciting. We'll have to wait and see what they come up with. So no other news other than what I just mentioned, but it's definitely a start. And Retrobit took their time with the first round of controllers, but boy, did they just knock it out of the park. So I'd rather that they take an extra little bit of time and just really get it right, because that would be great to have.
It'd be nice to have some test bench controllers or something for the Anna stream where I don't have to ravel up the controllers that are like 3 inches in front of me.
No, yeah, you're right. And you know what? We'll see what we can do about, getting our hands on some of these controllers before they hit retail and giving them a test drive and letting all of you guys know what these guys are like.
I'd like to do a couple, plugs and gratitudes. First off, many in the community have known Saturn Dave, Mr. David Lee, I know he's been on sabbatical, since he's had his new baby. He still continues to contribute to the community, and we've talked about his reproductions before, but I want to send a shout out to him, in this format. He sent me one of his repros of Radiant Silvergun with the translated manual, and seriously, like, as a repro maker, this is about as top quality as you can get without owning, like the studio molds, or excuse me, the original Sega resources to be able to produce a manual, a box art, the back art, even his discs are pretty phenomenal. So I wanted to thank him for sending this to me. Along with that package, Mr. Ben Boyd had a Panzer Dragoon Saga um, manual with the original art. And I know that Pat got sent one of these, and it was pretty awesome to see that original conception design come to life. So I wanted to send shout outs to David Lee and to Ben Boyd on the reproduction front.
Yeah, definitely. I think Peter, didn't you get you got Radiant Silvergun as well, right?
No, I didn't. But I did make it onto today's list. So at some point when he sort of works his way down the list, I'm on there. So it's just a matter of time. But I mean, having seen the work that he's done online, I mean, wow, there isn't a single thing that guy hasn't put out that I haven't been absolutely enamored with. I mean, he is top notch. I mean, if this guy was working back for Sega back in the '90s, we wouldn't have known the difference. He's that good.
Yeah, it's amazing. I got the Radiant Silvergun as well, and it looks fantastic. Like the disc is like it's ridiculous. It's like he went back in time, broke into the factory, and somehow figured out all the tricks and secrets of them producing the disc, and just did it. And it looks phenomenal.
Continuing on with the list of thank yous and such, another shout out to Dave. He's been the principal designer of things on our Threadless shop. And if anyone happens to be interested out there, I begged him for a oval button Saturn with the Japanese style controller because we
You
did
mean you
have.
mean Model One?
You are going to die the most painful death possible.
Oh my God, you just triggered him, Pat. Oh,
Screw getting assimilated. You're going to be decimated. So, oval button Saturn, Japanese pad. Um, it was not a design that we had had before on our shop. And when I went up to Emilio Morales's event up in Renton, it was a Renton City Retro. I wanted to represent Shiro, and so I had asked for this design. He made it up for me. I got the shirts in, and it was awesome. He also did a light on dark variation of the Sagata Sanshiro design that he had. Originally, that was only available in white. It wasn't available in black. I mean, I guess you could add dark on light, but he made a one where I could put it onto a black T-shirt, and that felt much more comfortable for me. So, two new designs on the Shiro Threadless shop.
Oh wow, I didn't even know about that. That's an exclusive to us too. So it's like we're learning about it too. But no, that's really cool. I kind of really want that design now because I have the oval button on the the U.S. style controller on the oval Saturn, the Japanese style controller on the U.S. Saturn. I think, right? Am I getting that right?
Are you talking about like the round button?
Yeah, the round button on the Japanese style controller. So yeah, I got those two. So I'd love to get that variation of it, so that we can have 3 shirts, and I can wear them every day at a convention. That's 3 days.
So yeah, thanks much again to David Lee for putting that out. I also want to thank Paul, who was one of our fans of the show and friends of the show. He lent me a monitor to the Renton City Retro with for our Xbox LAN party, and I want to thank him once again for that through this cast because I know he's going to be listening.
I heard you talking about that, and I was really hoping I'd be able to go there one of these days because your events sound like they're bomb. Like it sounds amazing, and I'd love to go to one eventually.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I know that we're not really doing personal updates, but I would have to say that that was a lot of fun all the way around, and I would love to be able to work on putting an event that good in this area, particularly if I could do it with just Saturn stuff.
That would be a dream. Yeah,
I love Saturn Con. That'd be amazing. We should make that happen.
for sure.
Yeah, might be. Anyway, that's what I've got.
I want to also just shout out to everybody who's participating in the Name That Game that I've been putting on. Gone a little quiet just over E3. I didn't want to oversaturate with E3 and all the news that's coming out, but it'll come back. And you know what? Each and every time that I've put one on, or every week that I've prepared the next batch, I thought, oh, this is harder. It's going to get trickier, and I'm really going to stump people. And oh my goodness, like our fans are just blasting through these like nobody's business, which is good. I mean, somewhere out there, Sega Saturn Shiro is smiling down on us because you're guessing these at a phenomenal rate. So I've got some pretty neat ideas of some of the future ones that I'm going to do in the next week or so. And I don't think I'm going to just limit myself to screenshots now. I mean, maybe I'm going to take some concept art or some background renders or whatever and start throwing them out there because you guys are just really, really good. And so, I mean, I'm glad that it's fun and that everyone's participating, and we'll definitely continue those on from time to time. So thanks, you guys.
Yeah, Peter. I'm kind of worried about that though, because I think our fans are so good that you'll post a gray piece of paper with like some things like, oh, I know that. That's issue 3 of issue 3, page 347 of this guidebook in Japanese.
It wouldn't even surprise me. Actually, it's so okay. So, funny story. I was looking through some of my more obscure Saturn files earlier this afternoon, thinking about what I could do, and I started going through the technical manual on how to program the Saturn's BIOS. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to take a page out of that. Maybe that's going to stump people. So, it's really to that level. I mean, people are just phenomenal. They're guessing this stuff like nobody's business. So, that's great.
Peter, you'd have to like go into a Saturn junkyard. Well, no pun intended. A junkyard full with Saturn stuff, and just dig through there until you find something super obscure. And even then, I think it'd be hard for people to not get it.
Yeah, and that just speaks volumes. I mean, this console has such a passionate following, and it's really heartwarming to see it, being solved so quickly, and that people are so passionate about it. I think it's great.
You have to do like a online leaderboard or something. Way to go, Peter, for coming up with the concept of screenshot game. It's great. So kudos to you on that.
I'd just like to plug our the Anna streams that we've been doing. Chaz, the game master, and I have been going through. We went through Snatcher. Unfortunately, I had a issue with my backup battery for the Sega CD where it died, and I lost all my save progress. So that was fun. But we improvised and we went to police knots, and we put that on cartridge and the memory, so we double back that up. But we're going through that right now. I wasn't unfortunately not able to stream this Saturday, which is the 16th, I think, of June, due to just being busy with life stuff. But we're gonna continue on next week and the weeks after, and go through police knots and hopefully have some good time. We've gotten pretty far. I think we just got to the police station. Now we met Ed, so we're going to continue on, and we're going to make a lot of jokes, point out some weird Kojima-isms, and just some cool references and sound cues. So come join us. I think it's really really interesting, and I have really great time talking with Chaz. He knows his Kojima.
How did we go through this entire cast without talking about the discovered Rebel Strike game?
Oh man, actually was thinking about that when you were talking Star Wars. I was like, now speaking of Star Wars, why don't we talk about Rebel Strike? I thought it was kind of a out of the blue insane find.
Yeah, finding an unheard of unreleased game in this day and age is pretty difficult. I know that my buddy Don had a bunch of games that most people did not know about, but even then there was some of those games, the idea that it never came out for the Saturn, even though it was developed, the same game came out on the PlayStation. Specifically thinking of Heart of Darkness. There you go. So it did come out on the PlayStation, but never saw light of day on the Saturn except through his discs. So yeah, like finding the pay dirt, whoever found this demo or developer build or whatever it actually ends up being, kudos to them, and thank you for sharing anything with the community. And here's hoping that it gets done properly and someday belongs to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the first Star Wars game we'd have on the Saturn because I don't think there is any, right?
No, there isn't. And you know what? Anytime I want my Saturn or my Star Wars fix, I have to go to my 32X. So to be able to, potentially one day be able to do that on the Saturn, that's pretty awesome. That's exciting.
I thought you were going to say to be able to never go back to the 32X is an awesome and exciting prospect.
Well, there is that too.
I'm super pumped and excited to see what happens with the Rebel Strike 2 because I mean, I think what was it the last really big Star Wars game before the Rogue Squadron games came out by Factor 5, right? You know the Factor 5, the Rogue Squadron games that they came out with for the
The
GameCube, or
GameCube,
the
yeah,
GameCube
those were
and
really good.
N64.
Yeah, the good games.
That's where, like, the Borg comes in, assimilates everybody, right?
That's what happens in Star Wars.
All right, that's great. I mean, that's awesome. And then, like, they're all flying in their DeLoreans and all that, right?
Yeah, I tried to make a Blade Runner reference, but I haven't seen Blade Runner, so sorry guys.
Ooh,
I saw the sequel. I need to watch the original.
yes.
My friend had a copy of that on his desk. I went over. I probably should have asked him if I could borrow that, but I completely forgot.
So let's talk about like what we've actually seen of this game, which really isn't much when it comes right down to it.
What was it? It was the guy on the bike on, was it Naboo, right? When they did that scene, and was it the Return of the Jedi, or was that Empire?
It was Return of the Jedi, and it's not Naboo. It was Endor.
Endor. Oh, sorry,
It was the moon.
I gotcha. That was that the one with the Ewoks. Yeah, that planet.
Oh, yeah.
This is this was the only Star Wars film that I had seen in theaters originally, like for the original trilogy. I was taken later onto the special edition, but yeah, of the original trilogy, my mom took me to go see Return of the Jedi, and I think my modern self is spoiled because I think it is the weakest or the second weakest film in the entire saga.
Oh man, no, I did not really care for Return, and I'll even have people gasp when I tell them I thought Episode 3 was better than Return of the Jedi.
Gasp.
I'm not going to gasp at that. I actually think that Episode 3 is among the top 3 of the franchise. Out of my favorites, Empire, I think is going to be number 1.
Oh, you can't not have Empire number 1. That's ridiculous.
Rogue One is number 2, and I think Revenge of the Sith is number 3.
Well, I'll agree with your top two. I would do the same for sure.
I don't know how I'd feel about Rogue One. It was a good movie, but I probably have to put Empire, A New Hope, and of course Episode 3, and then Return, and then
Here's the thing, right? This many years down the line, I can actually watch the prequels and not feel too cringeworthy, with the exception possibly of like that forced romance in Episode 2. Everything else seems like okay.
I can't make it through Episode 2. I fall asleep every time. It is so boring.
I like Episode 1 though.
I love episode 2. I love the political interplay, and I mean, yeah, the romance is super cheesy, but I thought episode 2 was way better than number 1.
See, like having gone back and I've watched them all, a second time, but I can get behind Episode 1 a lot more than I could get behind Episode 2, and I don't know why it is, but it feels more accessible. The only real complaint that I've got about that is the pod race scene went on too long.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about
It
that.
kind of was really unnecessary to begin with. I mean, it's a cool scene, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like, do we really need to do this?
Well, it was Lucas's homage to Ben-Hur, wasn't it? Like there were parts of Phantom Menace that had various scenes that were homages to other movies. It was my understanding.
I guess, but it's like, do we really need that? I don't know.
Maybe not. If you ever get a chance to watch the Phantom edit of that movie.
Oh, the Phantom Edit. I've heard of this actually only just recently, but I've never actually watched it. So I think I need to.
Yeah, it changes some things that were questionable about, like why did it come out this way. Primarily, for me anyway, the original trilogy had different species speaking natively in their language, and they were still able to communicate with people who were speaking the common or English language. And it made a lot of sense to have like the Trade Federation people not speak broken, stereotypical Chinese style English, right? That very broken English that you see represented in movies from like the 70s and 80s. But yeah, there's a bunch of fan edits, and I think those edits started like tuning my love of editing and video production and stuff. Not that any of this has to do with the Saturn. There was um discussion on Facebook at some point recently after the Rebel Strike thing was revealed about there being another Star Wars game on the Saturn, but it was not officially licensed. It was like a homebrew game or something like that. And I was trying to find it while this discussion was going on, but I can't seem to find it.
I gotcha. Well, if I think it's probably on there, so if you guys want to take a look at the Saturn Junkyard, I believe you can still probably find it. It's probably bumped every so often, and you could probably search it too, just Star Wars Rebel Strike. All right. Well, thank you for listening to our latest podcast. You can check us out on SegaSaturnShiro.com or Podium, or really anywhere you can get podcasts. Check out our store, the articles, our live streams, and really whatever. And I guess from all of us from Sega Saturn Shiro, you must play Sega Saturn.
You really, really must.
Also, get a tattoo, Kojima.
Across your chest.
Yes. Even better than I do, and I like got a tattoo of Kojima, so well, not Kojima himself, like a Kojima inspired tattoo. I mean, if I could get a Kojima tattoo, that'd go right on my body, right across my chest.
Okay.
Gonna cut that one out. That was kind of weird.
just, just. Oh, Pat, you're awesome. Just, I don't know if it's because we're tired or what, but that is the most hilarious thing ever.